Today's video is looking at some foam-free mechanics. So today I'm going to be using chicken wire, some beautiful foliage and some short-stemmed roses. If you want to learn how to do a foam-free arrangement, then this is the design for you. Welcome back to another tutorial. Today I'm going to go foam free. Now I get lots of questions about wire netting, also known as chicken wire, and there are lots of different ways of arranging without foam. So we're going to start with something quite basic. Just behind me I have some short stemmed roses and I've got a lovely selection of foraged or garden grown greenery. It's late winter, we're not quite in the spring yet, so there's lots of catkins and beautiful textured twigs, really, for want of a better word, that are going to work really nicely in today's arrangement. I think one of the difficulties with arranging with wire netting is that everybody is very much fixated on making a particular shape. Triangles, posies, oval shapes, L shapes. And really, with an arrangement in chicken wire, you've got to let the flowers speak to themselves. You aren't going to get that perfect triangle. You're not going to get those perfect geometric shapes. They became more popular when floral foam was invented. And what you've really got to think about when you're arranging without the formal structure of floral foam is to let the flowers speak for themselves. So if a piece of greenery is growing facing the left, that's the way you put it in your arrangement. If it's tall and straight, it goes in the middle. You can't manipulate it and make it do something it doesn't want to do. I'm going to use this lovely urn. This is a new acquisition for me. This has been bought from a charity shop. I think it was originally cream and it's been sprayed this sort of stone effect, but it goes really nicely with my flowers. I've got lilacs, peaches and pinks, and it really tones in beautifully with the container. Now if I was to put wire netting in this base, it would mean my flower positions would be very vertical because everything needs to go into the container to reach the, I nearly said foam, to reach the water at the bottom. So to be able to angle your materials more outwards at the side, you need less depth in the container. And what I'm going to do, and this isn't the only way, this is just my version, I'm going to use a smaller container. So when this sits inside, I can now angle my materials out more towards the side rather than them coming in this position here. I could angle them out that way, but it would mean filling this container right to the top with water. That gives you stability issues, and it means I can only put almost like a ball of wire netting on the top. So this is my solution for today's container. If you are starting to use less foam or no foam at all, then try and choose wide-necked containers because you can manipulate the wire netting or the chicken wire more freely. So I've got a plastic coated chicken wire. I've got a piece about this size and I've really rolled it into 3. You can't arrange with it flat over the top because there's nothing in there to hold your flowers. You have to have several layers. So I've rolled it into like a sausage and inserted it into that plastic dish. My first issue is that I've now got to work on hiding this area here because that's a mechanic and that's something that you can see. So ideally, I would like that to have sat flush with my container, but that's all I've got to work with, and that's a problem that you're possibly going to have as well. So let's fill that up with water. Before I do that, you might have noticed on the outside of that is some string. I haven't used plastic coated florist tape because that's plastic, so it's just the same as floral foam. It doesn't disintegrate, it's going to go into landfill. And you can't use anything like Floral Fix because that has the same problem. So string, this is jute, this is a natural product, it's going to decompose, or you use something that you can reuse time and time again. Make sure the wire netting is clean. If you've previously used it, you need to sterilize it and remove any bacteria that might be on there from previous designs. And one of my bugbears of the no foam situation is that everybody's very concerned of placing the floral foam in landfill, but nobody is thinking about the supply chain. Nearly all our flowers are flown in from abroad. So if you truly want to be environmentally friendly, I'm on my soapbox now. If you really want to be environmentally friendly, it's not just about stopping using floral foam. It's about only using flowers in their season that come from in your local vicinity. And as a UK-based florist, that makes my job only practical for maybe 60% of the year. So it's not something as a commercial florist you can do all year round. You can work towards it and you can look at more sustainable options, but there is nothing growing near me at the moment that I can use. So what do I do? How can I run a business? So let's top up my container. Fresh water with some flower food. And I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way up. And one thing you need to consider, and I'll mention it now when I remember, is that you need to be able to access the back of the design or the side so that you can keep topping it up with water. You don't really have the option to empty it and get rid of it, but you do need to keep topping it up because some flowers are very thirsty. Now, my first job is going to be, I'm going to try and face it towards you, is to cascade some greenery down over the front. So I work on covering this plastic container. If I'm doing this for weddings, we have a more of a bowl shape design that sits on top of our containers, and we transport those in 2 separate pieces. So for a wedding, I would take these 2 apart and pack these in boxes and carry this in a bucket. So if we get any spillages, it's all contained within the plastic container. So what I'm going to do now is use a really lovely foliage called Garrya elliptica. It's a spring growing material and it has these gorgeous tassels on it. Look at that. And I found this morning, I come a different way to work this morning, and I found a farm, big farm entrance where there was a huge one of these just spilling out onto the pavement. So we did a bit of community pruning. That's what it looks like with the foliage on. Foliage looks a bit sad, it's a bit raggedy. You might be able to see on that one. It's a bit raggedy, a bit damaged. So I've already cut off the majority of the greenery, apart from this one. Another thing that you need to consider when you're arranging in deep containers like this, if you haven't got this secondary container, is the length of the stems. Because if you've got short roses, like I have, then they aren't going to reach the bottom of the container, and that's the tallest you can make your design. Now, I can go as tall and as wide as that. So that extra secondary container works in lots of different ways. Now what I'm going to do with a few pieces is try to hide under here. And I've also got some short pieces of common ivy. So product knowledge is important with this style of arranging because you can't manipulate it into a shape that it doesn't want to go. So it's not like foam where I can angle the greenery down over the front. So let's pick a few pieces of this beautiful sort of common ivy. You can use the warmth of your hand sometimes to drape it down over the front. And I'm not thinking about a shape. I'm just going to work with my greenery, angling it down in an attempt to cover that base. Let's see what we've got so far. I don't have an awful lot of greenery that is draping. So we've got to make do with what we've got. So I've started to disguise it. It's not perfect, but it's going to work for today's arrangement. And you could maybe consider just adding a vine around the bottom there, or some ivy trails, because that will help as well. That's not doing a bad job. It's not perfect, but it's going to work for today. And then I'm going to use more of the little tassels in a bid to add some downward movement and to cover that plastic dish. Now, of course, if this was floral foam, I could come in at that position there, crossways, but I can't do that today. So short pieces tucked down in amongst the wire frame is really going to help. Now the natural growth pattern for both of these materials is to cascade down. So I've just got to work with that and thread it through that wire netting. And hopefully this nice big piece of trailing ivy is going to work. I think we've done a good job there. So that is just to cover my mechanics. I'm going to leave the back open until right at the very end. I could at this stage cover all the back with wire netting as well, but I'm going to leave as much of the netting visible through the video so that you can see what I'm doing. I don't want to hide it. Now I'm going to go with creating the heights, and for that I've got several pieces of really lovely rosemary. Look at that. Nice clean cut. And this is going to help start to create the height and the width of my arrangement. Play around until it's in a position that you think works well. One of the benefits, of course, of the wire netting is that you can keep moving things around, and you can take it out and put it back in again. But you do need clean stems, free of any thorns or leaves at the bottom. Now then, that looks a bit like those two wings that you hear me talk about quite a lot. I've got one a little taller which can pop at the back. Now evenly distribute your materials through the wire netting. Make sure you bring stuff right to the back, otherwise it's going to tip forward and it's all going to fall apart. And that is a sort of a triangle, or we could call it a fan. But I'm not looking to make that perfect shape. It's really going to be almost impossible to do, and I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to put myself through the worry and the stress. So lovely tall piece of the Garrya elliptica is going to give me a bit of height. Don't worry if things move around and swing around. That will become more secure as you add in more pieces. Remember that clean cut on the bottom. And if you want something on the outside of the arrangement, I nearly said foam again there, and if you want something on the outside, place it in to the wire netting on the side that you want it to be seen. Don't swap and cross stems. How's that so far? So we have gone a bit asymmetric there because I've got a taller branch on that side, but I'm going to enjoy it for the natural shape of the greenery. Now there are lovely catkins just about everywhere at the moment, so I've stopped and foraged for a few on the way in this morning. And if you look at this one, let's just move this out of the way. If we look at this one, it's naturally growing with it angled to your left as you're looking at it. It doesn't work quite as well in that position because it's flying up in the air, it's taking your eye up in the air. So this one is going to work much better on this side of the arrangement. So if you are picking greenery from your garden, sometimes you've got to walk around it and pick from different sides of the bush so that you get different size greeneries, or different shaped greeneries I should say. And you need to have it nice and long so it gets right the way down to the water supply. Lots of these plants and flowers are thirsty drinkers, and they need to be right down there in the wire netting. Now if your flowers are small and thin, your wire netting needs to be a smaller gauge. If you've got big chunky greeneries, big thick stems of foliage, then you're going to have to go with a wider wire netting, which is why I refer to it as wire netting and not chicken wire, because there are lots of different size holes and you need to learn all about them so that you're using the right size for the right style of flowers. So I've just used this one to bring some weight to the back of the arrangement, give you that depth, and to stop my vase becoming unstable and tipping forward. And I think at this stage I'm going to start to add some flowers. If you don't like that almost sort of see-through look there because I don't have greenery in this position, then you need to add some foliage in at the back. But I love that almost translucent feel that the different twigs and branches give my design. Now my roses for today are a florist grade rose. We can buy short stemmed roses through the florist supplies, but you can also get a short stemmed rose from a supermarket. And I'm just going to start by spreading out the colours quite evenly. So I'm going to start with the peach, clean cut on the bottom. I'm going to leave these as long as I possibly can because I might redo this arrangement but using floral foam so that you get to see a variation in the styles. But I can't bring these flowers out in that position there because we don't have the floral foam. They can only go into the container, into the wire netting. And you can see now that because I've built up a structure underneath, you can see how secure the roses are when I place them in. They're not spinning around. They're really solid there in the wire netting. And my design is forming beautifully. Now I'm probably not going to use all of the roses that I've got in the bunch here. If you're lucky enough to have any that are more open, then they're going to be positioned towards the middle. You need to remember to put flowers in at different heights so that we create recession. And the fuller the arrangement gets, the more difficult it becomes to get your flowers in to the arrangement. So we're going to go a little bit shorter towards the front so that we can see the different colours and the variation in the texture. Now I haven't removed any of the outer petals of these roses because they are quite a good quality, but there is that possibility that you would have to peel off a few of the damaged guard petals on the outside. And if you want them to open up a bit faster, then you can also, that one snapped, so we'll put that to one side. If you do want to open up the rose a little bit quicker, you can remove the guard petals as well because that will encourage the rose to open quicker. And I'm just thinking that I might see if we can reflex just one or two of the roses. So what I'm doing here is just bending the petals back so that the rose opens up more effectively. Now you can also spin your rose, and that sometimes encourages it to open more fully, and that would work better more towards the focal point. So I'm going to put a few roses in down deeper just to create that depth and draw your eye downwards. We don't want everything fanned out at the top. It's an arrangement that has height, width and depth, exactly the same as everything we do in foam. So you really need to consider spreading out the different colours and textures as best you can. And that includes leaning them slightly towards the back so that you give the design that desired effect. Now if we thought about this, does it have an outline? I don't think it does. It reminds me of something that you would see if you were watching a period drama on the TV. So if you're lucky enough to watch Downton Abbey or Bridgerton, then this is something you would definitely see on the sideboard in the corner of the room. But more often than not, it would be flowers that they'd grown themselves and they were exhibiting in the house. Now, if you don't have wire netting, you can probably do something very similar to this by using a massed, concentrated selection of greenery right at the base, because that gives you a network to feed all your flowers through. So don't worry if you can't get hold of wire netting. It's something that you can get in a DIY store or a gardening store. And it is something that's designed to keep animals enclosed in the garden or on the farm. It isn't originally designed for floral design. So if you're looking for it, it's in the DIY section. I think I definitely need something here towards the front. What I've really aimed to do here is to evenly distribute the variety of colours that I've got, rather than create a set formal pattern. You can see now I'm having a bit of difficulty because the wire netting is really full. If you overcrowd the wire netting, you will damage the stems when you're putting them into the, I keep going to say foam, when you're putting them in the wire netting, the stems get damaged. And if there's not enough room within the little metal container there won't be enough water there to keep your flowers fresh. So I think I'm going to stop. No, I'm going to add one more. I'm just going to add one more. I think we're going to do this colour here at the back. You will really know when you can't add any more flowers in because you won't get them into the wire netting. So use that as a guide. If you're finding it difficult to force flowers in, then stop. Don't add any more in at all. But that's all I'm going to do for this design. If you wanted to, you could add more greenery at the back, and you could easily make it taller if you have greenery of the suitable size. But if we look at the back here, I've allowed enough room here to be able to top it up with water, and that's really important with the design in wire netting. And if it's standing up against a wall, then I wouldn't worry too much about covering the back. Just concentrate on covering your mechanics, so from whatever position it's viewed at, it looks neat and tidy. It's not like floral foam where you've got to make sure it's completely covered. So if you want to upscale that for your local church, you need to have a receptacle that has a wider top to it so that you can get more greenery and more flowers in it. You still really need to consider the elements and principles of design. And remember that it needs to be really stable because you've got water in there, and if that spills out on the floor, you've got a health and safety issue. So I hope you've found that one enjoyable. I like arranging in wire netting because it's quite restful and quite calming. But a lot of you, I know, find it quite stressful. And I think that's because you're trying to create a specific shape. So relax, don't give yourself such a hard time. Let me know what you think of this one in the comment box. Generally speaking, the chicken wire designs aren't quite so popular, but I hope you've enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial, and like and share and comment in the box below. I look forward to seeing you next time. Stay to the end so that you can see close-ups of the finished design. And I look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye for now.